Atito, hello, I'm Maya Grace in case you don't know, and you already read the title, so you know we're going to be talking about everything that I learned while corseting for about a year straight. Realistically, it's getting closer to 2 years now. First, some background, I worked at a specialty goth shop that sold corsets, and I had to wear one as part of the job. So for just about every day, I was corseted and doing what I had to do for my job. And after that place went out of business, I continued to corset because it just feels nice. Can you move? Yes, I did all of the tasks associated with my previous job while in a steel-boned corset. I stooped, I squatted, I would lift like 5-pound boxes of shoes, probably closer to 20-pound boxes of shoes realistically. And I did all of this while also wearing demonias. So I have jogged in a corset, I've gone out to clubs and danced in a corset. Word on that, don't twerk in a corset, you will get bruising on the top of your booty. Ask me how I know. But to talk a little bit more about like moving and being active while in a corset, I am asthmatic, so take this next bit with a grain of salt. But I am more likely to get winded when I wear a corset. But like one way to breathe more comfortably in a corset is to breathe downward or by activating your diaphragm as opposed to like outward or like with your chest or your rib joints. Let me like take a few breaths and see if you can notice a difference. Like this is me breathing normally, taking really deep belly breaths. And if I breathe like the way that most people breathe without activating my diaphragm, it's just kind of like I can get a more dramatic breath in and it makes more noise. But like that diaphragm activated breathing, I don't know. It's what acting coaches say to do. It's what voice coaches say to do. And it's better for if you're wearing a corset. This is like my favorite thing about corseting is that you can like, yeah, knock on yourself. The only real issue with mobility in a corset is like bending. And there are workarounds. Like I tend to squat instead of like hunch, but typically I wouldn't reach for a corset if I was gonna be like hiking or doing something that was really aerobic. If I was gonna be like doing any kind of climbing or like yoga, I probably wouldn't reach for my corset. But when I worked in a kitchen after working in the goth shop, I reached for my corset in the morning and I wore it under my clothes. None of my bosses or managers ever noticed that I was even wearing it. So you can wear them stealthily. Also, when I was working in an upholstery shop doing like car interiors, I wore a corset and no one noticed or cared there either. I think that an overbust would be harder to wear stealthily, or like a longer line corset where like the issue that you'll run into is sometimes you'll be able to see like the top or bottom of it. But I was effectively wearing a waspy because I'm tall. Posture and fatigue. Obvious answer, my posture improved. It's still not perfect. I have made slouching into an art, but the posture improvements do last even when I'm not wearing it. I do feel stiff and like I need to stretch whenever I first take my corset off. And when I do first take it off, I get like kind of bouncy and wiggly and like I'll be a little bit higher energy for a little while. But when I first put it on, I also do feel higher energy in like a relaxed way. I focus better. I don't think as much about holding myself up. It's really nice. Also notice that I'm calmer. I have a tendency to feel like a fluttery, manageable level of anxiety when I'm around people I don't know super well. And whenever I have like the tight, squeezy feedback, I don't really get like butterflies in my stomach as much. It helps a lot actually. On the flip side of that, if I get like fatigued or overstimulated, I'll feel the stiffness in my back and like the restraint on my rib joints. Because your ribs are a joint, by the way. As soon as I start to actually feel like I'm being restrained or like I can't move how I want to, I have to take my corset off. But this doesn't seem to happen for like 3 hours or so. And normally it's when I go to an event where I'll be like sitting and standing a lot, or if I'm gonna be dancing, because I tend to dance in more of like a belly dance kind of way, and my corset stops me from being able to do that. It turns your body into like one stiff joint, like a Monster High doll. Trigger warning, I'm going to be talking about like body shape changes and weight gain and loss and that sort of thing. So if that's going to be triggering, I'm going to put a timestamp up here, and please take care of yourself and skip this part if you feel like you need to. Effect on my body has actually been kind of fun. The difference between wearing it and not wearing it is like, you know, like there's a tangible difference. Like the Disney-ified version of you. It like puts your body into a different art style is how I would describe it. It's no longer realism, it's magic. Also, the Tinkerbell effect is real. I got my first corset and within 2 months, I needed to go down from a 30 to a 26. This one that I'm wearing right now is a 22. Didn't do anything to lose weight really. I just was wearing it at work and like walking around wearing it. And like when I tell you I closed my first corset in 2 months, I could stick my hand in it when it was tightened. Like that is how loose it was. But when I was a teenager, if I would lose any weight like at all, it would make me look so much less feminine. And like my shape would just turn into like this rectangle of doom. Now I don't really get that same effect as much. Like I'm not shaped like a squeezy tube anymore. I'm kind of just shaped like a cliche hourglass kind of thing. And even when the corset's off, like I'm more rectangular when it's not on, obviously, because it's not holding me in shape. But I am less of a rectangle now that I've been corseting than I used to be, so it has had an effect on me. One other thing, if you have a tendency to forget to eat, that's gonna get worse while you're in a corset, because while you're wearing one, you're not as snacky. You also physically can't eat as much because it's like holding your stomach a little bit. So you're gonna wanna reach for like more nutrient-rich foods to compensate for that. So like, get yourself some charcuterie, eat something with protein, especially if you're gonna be corseted for a long time. You might wanna loosen your corset if you're about to like eat a meal, like go to the bathroom and loosen it. And then, you know, after it settles, you can tighten it back up. I notice myself adjusting my laces a lot throughout the day, depending on like if I've eaten or not or whatever. I can't not mention period pain relief. Okay, so a controversial thing to mention, and I am not a doctor, this is not medical advice, but I have seen and felt some things. Having pressure on like this part of my stomach while menstruating makes the period pain so much more manageable. Like I notice less cramping, I focus better, I think that I bleed less too. Like it's hard to say, but I use a menstrual cup and I notice myself needing to change it less frequently. And when I do change it, it's not like overflowing. But I have had instances in the past when I wasn't corseted where I was like overflowing my menstrual cups and it was just so much freaking blood. But now that I'm corseting, I think it's actually a lot better. Some of that might be that for worse periods, I don't wear a corset. Like this might be a false equivalency where like if I'm wearing a corset, I'm already having a better period. But I've had times where I've taken ibuprofen and also put a corset on, and like I felt the ibuprofen kick in and the corset had more of an effect. So take that with a grain of salt. I've also had clients that came in who menstruate and they told me the same thing, that like it really helps them with managing their pain and their symptoms. But I've also had people who corset and menstruate who've told me that it made their cramps and bleeding worse. So listen to your body and listen to your doctor and make decisions accordingly. Gastrointestinal things. We're adults, everyone poops. So let's talk about eating and processing what you've just eaten while you're squeezing your body into a very unnatural shape. If you are prone to being gassy, take a Beano before you corset, because if you have to squat to pick something up and you're holding in trapped wind, due to the corset squeezing your body, it will just free itself. So, you know, take a Beano and there'll be no gas. That's the best advice I can give you. I also have a hard time like not burping. Like I can't drink LaCroix while I'm wearing a corset because I will just be like burping so hard that I'm almost projectile vomiting. Physically no holding it back. Just don't drink a LaCroix while you're corseted because it gets weird real fast. But you know your tummy the best and like what it needs to keep it appeased and happy. Like I tend to avoid lactose while I'm wearing a corset just because I'm lactose intolerant. Most of the time I just play fast and loose with it. If I'm corseted, I don't take the risk because it's gonna make my stomach even more upset. Like if I'm bloating while wearing a corset, it's gonna be more uncomfortable. Also, like I've heard that sausage and pork are like worth avoiding because they can like agitate your stomach. But again, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be like different for everyone, like depending on what your stomach is already sensitive to. Also worth mentioning, I have heard from other people and not just me, that when you're wearing, like, when you're tight lacing, it kind of puts your intestines like on pause a little bit, and then as soon as you take it off or like loosen it, you're probably gonna have to like go to the bathroom like immediately. So be aware. It changes the thrifting game. Look at a bunch of those thrift flip transformations, and you know what's changed in like 70% of the videos? They've shortened it and taken it in. Do you know what you can do with a corset layered over a baggy 80s thrift store dress? You can fold it, put the corset over the fold, and then tighten the corset over the dress, and now the dress is shortened and taken in at the waist, and it has a cutesy little bodice that draws attention to your waist. I know that I think about like tailoring my thrift finds, and my rule is I don't take something home with me unless I have like a plan on how I'm going to fix it to fit my body the way that I want it to, and time blocked out to like do that to it. But if I'm just gonna cheat and wear it with a corset, there's no excuse not to thrift the thing. Another fun hack that I, your resident tall friend, really enjoy is that you can take a top, it can even be a crop top, and you can put a skirt that matches with the crop top and then put a corset over the two, and you've just made a dress out of the crop top and the skirt. So instead of having a matching set that shows your stomach and like isn't as cute because it's constantly pulling apart, you just put a corset on and you don't have to worry about it anymore. I also love using corsets to just like extend the length of a normal shirt and then like wear it with pants or a skirt over top of the corset, because again, I don't have to think about things like pulling apart and like showing my stomach when I don't want to, because if I'm wearing a crop top, that's fine, I've chosen to do that. If I'm not wearing a crop top, I want my clothes to stay where they're supposed to be. It's also so much easier to rock like vintage baggy pants whenever you've got like a sleek fitted silhouette up top, and with a corset, it's about as fitted as you can get. So this is my thrifting knowledge for you. That's basically all I've got to say on being a corset wearer for the last 2 years straight, but soon I'll be talking about what I've learned as a corset sewist as I've been wearing them more regularly, specifically off the rack corsets. Keep your eyes peeled for that. In the description box below, you'll find a link to my Ko-fi, where you'll get free PDF patterns that you can print in your home, such as the Cloud Queen bloomers and the headdress pattern, with others coming soon and really big exciting things on the way. This channel and my free PDF sewing patterns are only made possible by viewers like you. And speaking of viewers like you, if you followed one of my tutorials, or you've just made something cool or know a fellow fiber artist that you would like to share with me, there is a Google form down below where you can do that, share some pictures, share some links to their socials, tell me all about them and why you think they're great, and that will give them a chance to be featured on Keep Sewing On, my favorite thing that I do with my online presence that no one really watches. That's not true. I actually do get a lot of views on it. But if you liked this video, be sure to like it so the more awesome people like you can see it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends! Pew. Be aware. Speaking of corset burps, we got one on film.